Have you ever wondered why you constantly feel a strength within you that has never been fully touched, yet day after day you live as if you are only strong enough to survive? You complete what must be done, say what should be said, restrain what wants to erupt, then soothe yourself by calling it fine. But Nietzsche would look straight through that self-consolation and ask the question you fear most. Is the weakness in you your nature, or merely the result of living far below your own height? Nietzsche believed that weakness is not born naturally. It is cultivated every time you betray your own life instinct. To erase weakness, according to Nietzsche, is not to learn how to become stronger, but to peel away every illusion that has made you smaller. The fear of being disliked, the need to be liked, the moments you shrink yourself to fit. He wants you to stare directly at what is controlling you, so that finally you can reclaim control of yourself. And this is why you should stay until the end. What follows is not pleasant advice. These are Nietzschean cuts, sharp enough to wipe out the weakness you mistook for fate, but which is, in truth, only the habit of surrender. Number 1. Nietzsche did not write to save you. Have you ever asked yourself why there are truths you understand perfectly well, yet still deliberately turn away from? Not because you are ignorant, not because you lack time, resources, or opportunity. The real reason lies deeper and is harder to accept. Within you still burns a quiet, childish hope, fragile yet deeply rooted, that one day someone will appear and pull you out of the life that is draining you dry. A person, a relationship, a system, a hand at the right moment. Nietzsche looks straight at that hope and does not hesitate. He does not comfort it. He does not pity it. He cuts it out of you like a tumor, because to Nietzsche, that is not hope. It is the illusion of salvation, and every illusion of salvation is a form of mental decay in disguise. Nietzsche does not come to heal you. He comes to destroy the most dangerous idea you are nurturing, that your life is the responsibility of someone else. He wrote in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, "Become who you are," not as a gentle suggestion, but as a blow aimed directly at humanity's chronic weakness, the craving for someone to lead the way. For Nietzsche, the decisive moment in a person's life is not when they are saved, but when they realize no one is coming, and instead of collapsing, they feel lighter. That is the first foundation of strength in Nietzsche's sense. I once knew a man named Paul. He believed his life would change when the right person appeared. A mentor, a relationship, an opportunity with a sense of destiny. Paul was not lazy. He was not incompetent. His entire problem was contained in a single word: waiting. Year after year, he stood still, while the feeling of powerlessness thickened. Then one day, after a business failure, friends fell silent. Family was busy. His partner left. In a cramped rented room among unpaid bills, he uttered a dry sentence: "No one is coming." And in that exact moment, he felt as if a shackle had been removed from his leg. From that day on, Paul stopped waiting, and only then did his life begin to move. Nietzsche wants you to touch that exact feeling. He wants the childish psychological foundation within you to collapse completely. Nietzsche forces you to stand naked in the desert of truth, where there is no shade, no shelter. But that desert does not kill you. It forges you. It hardens you into steel. Human beings do not become strong when they are led or pitied. They become strong only when there is no path left except the one they are forced to carve themselves. And at the end of that desert, Nietzsche places before you a massive stone door with no handle. Most people stand motionless, waiting for someone to open it for them, or for a safe signal from the world. But this door opens only when you place your own hands on the cold stone and pour your entire will into pushing. No instructions, no one ahead of you, no right moment. Only you and the strength you bring into being in the instant you dare to push a door you are not sure will open. That is why Nietzsche did not write for those seeking comfort. He wrote for those brave enough to face life directly, without fantasy, without pleading, without shifting responsibility onto anyone else. Strength begins the moment you stop calling "no one is coming to save me" a tragedy. That is the only true starting point of Nietzschean strength. Absolute responsibility. From here on, erasing weakness is no longer a vague slogan. It is the inevitable consequence of a person who has decisively stopped seeking salvation. When you understand that you are the only one left, all weakness in you dissolves like mist under harsh sunlight. Not because you are cold, but because you have matured in Nietzsche's sense. No one saves you, and you no longer need anyone to. You step onto the suspension bridge of your own life, and that very act wipes out every remaining trace of weakness. Number 2. Redefining weakness, not emotion, but self-betrayal. Weakness, for Nietzsche, has never resided in emotion. No one becomes fragile simply because they tremble, feel anxious, or suffer pain. People become weak when they learn to ask permission to exist as they truly are. They distort the truth to please others. They suffocate their life instinct in exchange for safety, praise, acceptance. Like someone who longs to be an artist, but folds their dream away to satisfy family. Like someone with a sharp mind who shrinks themselves to avoid outshining friends. Like someone who wants a different life but wears a mask each day that others find more pleasant. In those moments, they are not trembling before life. They are turning their back on themselves. Nietzsche does not call that kindness. He calls it what it is: self-betrayal. A subtle form of betrayal, repeated long enough to become habit. And that habit hollows a person out from within, without their awareness. There is a Nietzsche line most people avoid. No one can build you the bridge on which you must cross the river of life. Every time you adjust yourself to suit someone else's gaze, you remove a piece from the only bridge you are required to build yourself. Nietzsche was particularly struck by the figure of Psyche in Greek mythology, the woman forced to complete impossible tasks to reclaim love. In one task, she must sort countless seeds in a single night, something no human could do. Ants come to help her. People read this as a symbol of just go and help will appear. Nietzsche reads it differently. Psyche is never entitled to rely on that help. Help appears only after she accepts facing the impossible. Strength does not lead the way. Strength is born through action, even when that action may end in failure. If Psyche had asked for an easier, safer path, the story would have ended there. But she did not betray her instinct. That is the moment strength takes form, when a human chooses loyalty to instinct, even when confronting the impossible. A viewer named Mira once shared that from childhood, she was always praised as well-behaved, easy, understanding. At 18, she wanted to study design, but when her family called it impractical, she folded the application away and chose accounting because it felt safe to them. At work, whenever she had sharp ideas, she swallowed them to avoid making colleagues uncomfortable. In love, she repeatedly wanted to end a toxic relationship, yet smiled and said, "I'm fine," simply because she feared being abandoned. For years, Mira did not tremble from weakness. She wore away from constantly reshaping herself to fit others. Each compromise, each shrinking, each word spoken against her instinct cut away a small part of herself. One day she said, "I can't hear my own voice anymore." That is exactly what Nietzsche called slave morality, the morality of those programmed to be easily controlled. The self-betrayal Nietzsche describes is quiet. It lives in small moments, when you smile to hide resentment, when you say, "It's okay," to avoid disappointing others, when you stay silent because you fear your truth might make someone leave, when you compress yourself to be likable. The cost of these choices is not who stays. The cost is this: every time you choose safety over instinct, you cut away a portion of your life force. You shrink, you thin out, you fade, until you can no longer hear your own voice. Nietzsche wants you to see this clearly. Weakness is not the result of strong emotion. Weakness is the result of severing yourself from the life instinct, the raw energy he called the will to power. People do not need to become tougher or smarter to stop being weak. They only need to stop denying themselves, stop living under others' eyes. When you no longer seek permission, no longer twist the truth, no longer shave yourself down to be liked, weakness collapses on its own. And that is exactly what Nietzsche is doing to you, not soothing fear, but tearing apart the layers of self-betrayal you have worn like false armor. When you are brutally honest about where you have betrayed yourself most, when you admit your life has been governed by the fear of not being accepted, that is when you step out of the shadow of the pleasant person and toward the figure Nietzsche wants you to see. Someone absolutely loyal to their own life instinct. That alone is enough to erase every remaining trace of weakness. And you? If you want a first step that cannot be undone, write in the comments the moment you shrank yourself just to be accepted. Not to complain, not to seek comfort, but to pinpoint exactly where your strength was bent and where it can return. Let that moment become a marker. From here on, you no longer live smaller than your own nature. Number 3. Domestication. How the modern world produces weak human beings. And just when you think you understand where weakness lies, Nietzsche pulls you down one level deeper, a level many never dare to face. It is not only that you betray yourself, the world itself is designed to ensure you keep doing so. Weakness is not an accident of life. Weakness is what you are raised to become. Weakness is a product crafted so finely that you call it by beautiful names: civilized, proper, normal. Nietzsche does not use soothing phrases like social pressure. He uses a more precise and merciless word: decadence, the decay of vitality, the rot of instinct, the withering of will. Not arising from the individual, but from systems that want humans to be predictable, replaceable, controllable. Imagine a vast field where eagles, born to tear through storms, are locked in iron cages, not small enough to kill them, but tight enough to make them forget they once knew how to fly. Each morning, scraps of meat are tossed into the cage, and the eagle, born for the sky, begins to lower its head and pick at food. After months, the wings weaken. After years, the memory of the sky fades. And one day, the cage door opens, but the eagle remains still. Not because it is injured, but because it believes the outside is danger. We are not having our wings broken, we are letting them atrophy. And Nietzsche wrote, "He who cannot obey himself will be commanded." Modern science confirms what Nietzsche saw long ago. A Stanford study shows that when humans live in highly controlled environments, where they are not allowed to decide, not allowed to fail, not allowed to express instinct, activity in the prefrontal cortex, the center of agency and choice, decreases, while the limbic system, the center of fear, becomes more reactive. That is why those trained for stability are often anxious, passive, and unable to break through. Over time, the brain learns to accept the cage as its natural state. Nietzsche saw through this mechanism a century earlier. For him, this was not moral decline, it was the rotting of life force. When education prizes obedience over thinking, when culture values niceness over truth, when media turns fear into identity, when society teaches you to blame circumstances every time you stumble, you are being stripped of the only thing that makes a human dangerous: the will to power. A strong individual destabilizes every order. An obedient one is a tool. That is why your weakness is not merely a personal tragedy. It is a state the world benefits from maintaining. Nietzsche does not say this to make you resent society. He says it to wake you from the trance. As long as you believe weakness is nature, personality, or destiny, you will remain chained to it. Only when you dare to face the truth that you have been domesticated does the urge to break the cage begin to form. When you say you are weak, Nietzsche asks, weak in what sense? Weak because you lack courage, or weak because you were taught to abandon courage from childhood? And when you answer honestly, you see the most frightening thing of all. Your weakness is not natural. It is the residue of an environment that wanted you to believe you had no other choice but to live smaller. And the moment you see that, you begin to break the cage, not with rage, but by restoring power to the life instinct that was stripped away for too long. From here, the erasure of weakness truly begins. Number 4. The real battle against herd morality. But if weakness does not come from emotion or nature, but from social domestication, then what truly causes you to lose your life instinct? Nietzsche asks this not to accuse you, but to expose the real enemy. Not fear, but herd morality, the force that makes humans confuse obedience with goodness, shrinking with humility, impotence with kindness. The battle Nietzsche describes does not happen outside. It happens within, where life instinct is shackled and then painted over with praiseworthy values. The herd has only one strategy: turning fear into morality. When you hesitate, they call it being thoughtful. When you shrink, they praise you as gentle. When you do not speak what burns in your chest, they call you considerate. Nietzsche slices through this language and names it precisely: a system that protects weakness by rewarding it. Nothing threatens order more than a person with intact instinct, and nothing is more convenient than an obedient one who reshapes themselves to fit the herd's mold. Herd morality is dangerous because it does not coerce through force, but through praise. It turns shrinking into nobility, fear into humility, submission into kindness. You think you are becoming better, but in truth, your vital impulse is being drained. Nietzsche understood this with ruthless clarity. He did not teach violence. He called you to become dangerous in a spiritual sense, original and honest enough that no one can force you into the shape they want. I once met a girl named Erlin. She grew up in a small religious community where women were taught from childhood that gentleness is goodness, submission is virtue, silence is wisdom. Every Sunday, the pastor repeated the same message. A wise woman is one who suppresses emotion, endures patiently, and keeps harmony. Erlin heard this for 17 years, until she believed every strong feeling in her was wrong. At family dinners, even when misunderstood or unfairly blamed, she lowered her head and smiled. When choices not her own were imposed on her, she thought, "I must keep the peace." The entire village praised Erlin as a proper, devout girl, but no one knew that every night she cried from the feeling of living someone else's life. One day she said, "I've never known what anger feels like." That was not gentleness, it was the mark of a rebellious instinct taken away too early. Nietzsche would look at Erlin and say, "She is not gentle. She was praised long enough to believe shrinking was a virtue." Imagine a great river blocked by small dams. No single dam can destroy the river, but each one reduces its force, its turbulence. Eventually the river still flows, but no longer with enough power to carve new paths. That is the human being under herd morality. Each time you bow your head, your life force diminishes a little, until you forget you once could split mountains and open new channels. Nietzsche wants you to see this danger clearly, without panic. But he does not let you stop at awareness. He asks, are you living by your own instinct or by the morality of those who fear instinct? If you dare answer honestly, you will feel a small movement in your chest, life returning. Rebellion here is not meaningless. It is proof that your instinct is not dead. It has only been lulled to sleep by praise. From that moment on, herd morality loses its power. The dangerous human, according to Nietzsche, is not the destroyer, but the one who can no longer be domesticated. One who does not live to be praised, to fit, to become harmless. They live by instinct, and from that instinct, strength is born. This is how Nietzsche strips away weakness, not by making you stronger, but by tearing off the false moral layers that made you believe you were weak. When you see the herd extinguishing your instinct, you stop bowing. You stand upright, not to prove anything, but because you have remembered who you are. That strength never disappeared. It was only covered by values that were never yours. And if this section touched you, if you recognize that you have lived too long beneath dams others placed, leave a like on the video as a silent admission. I am waking up from herd morality. Sometimes a small act is enough to remind you that the instinct is still there and already beginning to return. Number 5. When you no longer need to be liked, you begin to have power. In Nietzsche's eyes, the need to be liked is not merely an emotional weakness. It is a deviation of the soul, a mechanism that causes human beings to lose the original energy he called the will to power. The will to expand oneself, to surpass limits, to create the strongest form of one's being. When you need others to like you, you no longer live from the will to power. You live from a lower impulse, the impulse to be accepted, to feel safe in the eyes of others. And between those two impulses lies a chasm that most of humanity never crosses. When you let the gaze of others guide you, the energy meant to create your life is consumed by predicting what the world wants from you. You no longer create yourself. You only adjust, shrink, censor, blur. Nietzsche saw this as the greatest waste. destroying potential by living according to someone else's mold. The will to power never grows in places where you are liked. It only rises in moments when you dare to choose yourself, even when that choice makes others uncomfortable. That is why the will to power is not an aggressive force as many misunderstand it, but a shaping energy, a creative force. Human beings, according to Nietzsche, are not born to obey, but to shape their own lives. Yet you cannot shape anything if your mind is split by the question, "What will they think of me?" Every time you sacrifice your truth for someone else's comfort, you place a blade at the throat of your own will to power. Conversely, when you live without needing to be liked, you begin to hear again the quiet call of instinct. What else can I become? That is the moment the will to power opens its eyes. I once knew a designer named Kyle. For many years, he created products that were safe, acceptable, easy to like, because he wanted clients to be pleased. Everyone liked Kyle, but Kyle was hollowing out. One day, after an idea was rejected for being too strong, Kyle asked himself, "Why did I choose this work? To be praised or to create something only I can create?" For the first time, he completed a project without asking permission, without seeking opinions, without optimizing for likability, letting emotion guide his art. The initial reaction was not praise. It was whispers that Kyle had gone too far. But 6 months later, that very collection became an unmistakable signature. Not because it was liked, but because it carried something no one else could copy. The trace of an instinct that had stopped asking for permission. Kyle said, "I didn't become stronger. I just stopped letting the fear of being disliked decide who I am." And that was precisely the moment the will to power arose, not from recognition, but from ending the need for approval. The person who needs to be liked always asks, "What will they think of me?" The person who lives by the will to power asks, "What is the strongest form I can become?" The crowd wants you predictable. The will to power wants you surprising. The crowd wants you to fit. The will to power wants you strong enough to break the mold. When you no longer need to be liked, you are not only free, you are dangerous. Because then, you no longer live to serve the existing order. You live to create a new one. That is existential creativity, the sign, for Nietzsche, of a soul in evolution. At the deepest level, not needing to be liked is not an act of rebellion. It is the mature act of the will. You do not hate anyone. You do not fight anyone. You simply stop trading your essence for the crowd's comfort. That is the moment life energy returns to its rightful owner, you. When you no longer hunt for approval, you stop directing energy outward. You direct it upward. The will to power thus shifts from defense to creation, no longer guarding an old version of yourself, but beginning to give birth to a new one. And in that very moment, Nietzsche says, the weakness within you falls away like the shed skin of a snake that has outgrown yesterday's body. No need to fight others. No need to oppose the world. Simply stop betraying your own instinct. The rest the will to power will handle. When you enter this state, you no longer need to be liked. You only need to be loyal to your own nature. And that alone is enough to make the world change its tone when it speaks to you. Because once the will to power awakens, weakness within you has nowhere to hide. It is erased, exactly as Nietzsche intended for you. Number 6. Fatigue is a sign of the weakening of the life will. And just when you think strength lies only in no longer fearing being disliked, Nietzsche pulls you down another level. The fatigue within you is not accidental, not modern burnout, but the clearest warning sign of a life will in decline. You are not exhausted because you do too much. You are exhausted because you have lived too far from your instinct. For Nietzsche, fatigue is never merely physiological. It is the final cry of a will to power compressed to the point of bending and breaking. You do not collapse from heavy responsibility. You collapse from swallowed anger, self-censorship, shrinking to fit, living in roles that are not yours. Nietzsche did not write about burnout. He wrote about souls eroded by lives opposed to the primal strength they were born with. Imagine entering a bright room. At first, light floods it. You speak what you think, follow intuition, are fully present. Then reminders appear. Don't be too strong. Don't speak too loudly. Don't make people uncomfortable. Each reminder is like a hand turning off another light. You keep walking, but slower. You keep speaking, but softer. You remain present, but smaller. Eventually, the room is so dark you no longer recognize yourself. You are not tired from going far. You are tired from going far away from your own nature. If you want to see this through science, observe how the nervous system functions. When people continually suppress true emotion, especially anger, truth, the urge to self-express, the sympathetic system remains under constant strain without release. The prefrontal cortex, where agency and stance are formed, gradually weakens, while the limbic system, the center of fear, becomes more sensitive. The result? A body that is tired without knowing why. A mind that is drained without understanding the cause. Science calls this emotional inhibition, fatigue. Nietzsche names its essence, a soul weakened because it does not dare live by its instinct. Nietzsche understood this better than anyone. He knew the deepest human fatigue does not come from work or events, but from silent betrayal of the inner will to power. That fatigue is not the body asking for rest. It is the spirit crying out because it has been lived crookedly. Nietzsche wrote, "To live is to suffer. To survive is to find some meaning in the suffering." But the meaning he spoke of does not lie in meek endurance. It lies in the moment you dare face the truth that you have strayed from your instinct and return. Nietzsche looked at fatigue and saw it as a sign of a soul demanding to live rightly. That fatigue is the final signal before the spirit collapses entirely. It says, your life instinct cannot endure another compromise. Recall the times you were hollow with exhaustion. That was not fatigue from doing, but from suppressing. Not fatigue from action, but from being unable to act according to your nature. Not burnout, but the inevitable cost of a strangled will. And here is what Nietzsche wants you to face. If you do not live by your strength, you will live by your decay. Fatigue is not the enemy, it is the verdict. It exposes what you refuse to admit. You have lived too long in a diminished version of yourself. The good news is this: fatigue is not the end, it is a wake-up call. It is the point of impact before you return to your strongest instinct. The moment when, if you have the courage to look at it, you will see that strength never disappeared. It was only covered. You do not need healing. You need to strip away the layers of misliving that have sealed your spiritual lungs. Nietzsche wants you to know, strength does not come from conserving energy, but from stopping the betrayal of it. When you stop living against your nature, fatigue dissipates like the last toxic fumes expelled from the lungs. You are not weak. You have simply not lived true to your instinct long enough to remember that this strength never left you. And the moment you return to it is the moment Nietzsche erases all weakness within you. If Nietzsche stood before you now, he would not ask, "Are you tired?" He would ask, "How deeply have you betrayed your own instinct?" So before telling me, tell yourself honestly, are you tired from doing too much or from living too far from your own instinct? Answer that question in the comments. Just one sentence, but it will be the first sentence you write without betraying your own strength. Number 7. Erasing the victim mindset and choosing your own meaning. Nietzsche understood a truth many do not dare face. The greatest weakness of human beings does not lie in fear or in the wounds they carry, but in the moment they hand over their right to exist to an external force and call it fate. The victim mindset is where power is executed first. It uses the past as a shield, turns circumstance into handcuffs, and turns pain into a mask to evade responsibility. The moment you believe that what happened matters more than how you respond, you have signed away your power. Nietzsche despised that state. For him, suffering grants you no moral authority. It becomes value only when you forge it into the steel of will. Wounds do not make you profound. They become strength only when you have the courage to stand up without needing witnesses. Amor fati, love of fate, is the blade Nietzsche uses to cut the victim mindset at the root. Not loving what is pleasant, but loving even what crushed you to the ground. Not mere acceptance, but the choice to look directly and declare, "I will use this as raw material." The strong know that life owes them nothing, but they owe themselves a response that is not cowardly. The moment you stop asking, "Why me?" and replace it with, "What will I build from these ruins?" you step out of the victim's shadow and become the creator of destiny. I once knew Lucas, a man who believed life should be fair to his efforts. 7 years of saving to open a studio, and just as everything seemed to take shape, a partner vanished with all the capital. Lucas lost everything: money, time, trust. In the first weeks, he was furious. In the following months, he sank into self-pity. But one morning, while clearing the empty room, he realized a truth. He hated the event, but it had exposed illusions he had hidden for 7 years. That success should come easily, that others must walk with him, that fate should reward diligence. In that moment, Lucas did not merely accept failure, he thanked it. He said, "If I hadn't lost everything, I would never have seen my true nature." From that day on, he no longer fought fate, he cooperated with it. He used betrayal to build stronger contracts. He used loss to learn risk management. He used 7 blind years to see clearly what he truly wanted. 2 years later, he opened a new studio, not larger, but sturdier, because it was built from old ashes, not vague hope. If you need an image, look at a forest after a fire. Ash everywhere, broken trunks. Yet it is that scorched ground that nourishes the strongest seeds. They do not wait for perfect conditions. They erupt from the very place that once burned them. Nietzsche would say, "Amor fati is when you do not merely accept the fire, but use the ashes to grow." The victim looks at the blaze and asks, "Why me?" The strong look at the same scene and ask, "What will I become after this fire?" Nietzsche erases weakness by placing 3 unavoidable questions in your hands. What do you serve? What are you willing to sacrifice? And what will you no longer tolerate? A person is weak only when they do not know what is worth standing up for, what is worth enduring, and what must never be allowed to repeat. Strength does not come from energy. It comes from clarity. When you know what you serve, the past loses power. When you know what is worth the trade, fear loses weight. When you know what cannot be tolerated, the world cannot bend you to its will. Nietzsche did not believe in a journey of finding meaning. He believed in forging it. Meaning is not a treasure accidentally discovered in a romantic mood. It is something you choose, protect, and take responsibility for bringing into reality. Meaning is a product of will, not a gift from circumstance. And Nietzsche knew well, if you do not choose your meaning, the world will choose for you, and it will always choose in a way that makes you safe, small, and easy to control. That is why Nietzsche is determined to erase the victim mindset from you. Not because it makes you pitiable, but because it makes you powerless. The victim waits for the world to change, for fairness, for life to soften. The strong, for Nietzsche, do not wait. They choose. They choose what they serve. They choose what they are willing to sacrifice. They choose what they will no longer allow. And from those three choices, meaning is born. And the moment you stop asking why life is unfair, why others hurt you, why things do not go your way, Nietzsche will smile, a smile sharp as a blade. Because that is the moment you understand what he spent his life saying. Human beings do not grow strong through privilege. They grow strong because they decide not to be weak anymore. And from that decision, all weakness within you is burned away like dry grass under the midday sun. Not by the world, but by the will that has finally awakened. If you have come this far, you have seen what Nietzsche wanted you to understand from the beginning. Weakness is not the enemy, illusion is. And when illusion is stripped away, what remains in you is not emptiness, but the primal strength you once forgot. A truly strong mind is not a mind that fears nothing. It is a mind that no longer runs from itself. When you stand firm in will, the world can no longer use praise or expectation to turn you. It must reveal its nature, and you do not. To build a mind that others are wary of is not to learn how to appear strong, but to stop betraying your own instinct. When you enter what Nietzsche called spiritual self-mastery, your presence carries its own gravity. Quiet yet dangerous, silent yet unbreakable. You do not need to be liked. You only need to be loyal to your own nature. And that is enough to make the world change its tone when it speaks to you. If this message touched you, share it with someone being made small by their own life. And if you want to continue the journey of building a mind the world cannot break, subscribe to Walk With Us. Because a mind that makes the world wary is not born from luck. It is born from the moment you decide to no longer be weak.